Okay, and we are live on Facebook and on Zoom. So thank you everybody for joining us. We're very happy to have you with us today. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulillah. So we are already into our 5th day of Ramadan. So I don't know if you're like me, but it is speeding by. And today is a much needed session to kind of reorient ourselves spiritually and mentally and emotionally. So I'm Raniah Elgendi. I'm the Programs and Outreach Director for CAIR. This is our Wednesday social lunch hour series. We have some really great guests from the CAIR team to join us here today. We have Nathaly Osorio-Rios, who's actually a CAIR project coordinator and licensed counselor and psychologist, as well as Rajat, who is a USF professor, Arab and culture and language specialist, and also a CAIR-Florida advocate with our diversity and training series. So, just a quick reminder, a few housekeeping items, that we have our Wednesday series at 12 Eastern every week. We also have our CAIR Connections on Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern. This Sunday, we actually have a great youth Ramadan brain ball trivia session to get the youth involved and get them a little break. So that will be this Sunday at 5 p.m. Check out our Facebook for that information. And this Friday, we actually have a special telethon that we're going to be doing with Sheikh Suhaib Webb. And so I know some of you guys missed him last week on our social lunch hour, but we're actually going to be doing a Friday program starting at 1:30. He's going to give a live khutbah and then do a program with CAIR-Florida to have a telethon. So please join us then as well. Check out our social media. And also, as it's Ramadan, a lot of our fundraising had been canceled for the month. If you guys enjoy these programs, if you're able to support us, please, do so. And on Facebook, you can visit our LaunchGood page at launchgood.com/CAIR-Florida 2020 Ramadan. We hope that you will. So with that, we're going to get started into today's program. So today's program, I have to tell you that it was important even for me this morning as I was, preparing for the topic. I was reviewing some of the notes that these great ladies have prepared, and it was really calming for me just to recenter myself and to read some of the feedback and advice that you guys had. So thank you for that. Looking forward to it. What we're talking about today is, overall mental well-being, right? Your mental health. And someone had actually asked me in a WhatsApp group, they asked some of the ladies in the group, how are you guys doing this Ramadan? And it was interesting that a lot of the responses are that we're so busy externally, and Ramadan is a time for, slowing down and reflection internally. So it's a really strange dichotomy to be feeling like maybe in some areas of your life you're very fast-paced, and then in Ramadan we're also trying to slow down. So it's a very welcome and timely discussion, inshallah.
Get up, Zoya. Get up.
Sorry, guys. So we're actually going to be speaking about three main topics within mental wellness and well-being, which are general well-being, including the physical aspect, and then as well as social interactions and emotions and thoughts. And so with that, I think we're going to go ahead and jump in and start, open the floor with Nathaly to talk about, the general well-being aspect of it, how we can just start with the foundation of overall, positive health.
Thank you so much, Rania. And well, salam to everyone and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you so much for joining us. And okay, so we want to talk about general well-being because we cannot talk about psychological or mental well-being just like an isolated part of ourselves and of our overall development and well-being. So for starting, it's very important to take care of our physical bodies and of our physical reality. So just two basic things for everyone, good nutrition and movement. So with good nutrition is just, a reminder to eat some healthy food, very rich in vitamins, iron, in all the nutrients that we need to get through the day. And I know that during Ramadan, well, you're fasting, so there's a long period of time when you are not eating, but you can have suhoor and iftar. So yeah, of course, in the night we want to have or goodies and some sweets and some very delicious food, and that's great. But please also include some very nutritious food that can be very good for your body. You know, you need the vitamins, you need your greens, you need fruit. So try to be very mindful of what you're eating, because while we are eating our food, is also that also has an effect on our brain, on our overall well-being. So that's very important to have in mind, and well, to have energy during the day, you know, and especially during these times, as Rania said, we are at home and we are working from home, and it, like at the beginning, perhaps some of us might think like, okay, this may slow things a little bit down. No, it's not like that. We're having thousands of calls a day. We're having so much work to do. So we need to have good energy. So that's one thing, our nutrition, our diet. Please be mindful of that. And some movement, you know, we don't have to work out very, you know, do exhaustive activity just to be healthy. Some movement in general that feels good for your body can be good. You know, if you can dance, and you don't know how, you don't need to know how to dance like a professional to enjoy the movement of your body. You know, just play on, put on some good music and move as you feel like it. Or you can try many different activities. You know, yoga, it's also a very good option. You can find very different levels and types of yoga. So a very dynamic and active one, or something soothing and calming. And you can choose whatever fits your style. And also, if you have the energy to do a strong workout routine, well, do it as well if you feel good with that. But also, again, be very mindful of what your body needs right now. But keep moving somehow. It increases it improves our immune system. It makes it stronger. And it also improves our general mood because of all the neurotransmitters that we release when we are moving our bodies. And it helps maintain our muscles and our bones in good shape. So those are like very two general recommendations. Everyone should be aware of what's appropriate for themselves. You know, not everyone can go jogging for 10 hours for 3 hours for 10 minutes, you know, like, you know, just adapt your nutrition and your physical activity to your needs.
Absolutely, thank you, Nathaly. And Vijay, I know that one of the things that you were speaking to me about was your energy levels, and how what, you know, Nathaly is discussing is related to like your energy, and not just your physical energy. It affects everything else that you do, right? It affects like your emotional outputs and your mental outputs. So if you want to speak a little more to that, and I also appreciate, Nathaly, the point that you made about everyone having, you know, a different environment and not having the same you know, support maybe at hand. So if we are not all like this gentleman who has a beautiful view of the ocean and rocks, that we can each kind of find our own way to maintain that, inshallah. But Raja, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Rania, and thank you, Nathaly. That's very resourceful and informative. I definitely agree with the fact that we need to keep our bodies on the move. As we all know, a body in motion stays in motion. But it's definitely important to make sure that we are also distributing our energy wisely. Sometimes we get very excited about our day, and then we start with an intense energy. And subhanAllah, it just comes to a real slowdown. And basically, we start headed towards speed bumps, and basically our energy starts slowing down, and it feels like you are carrying an overstuffed sandbag. That's when you have to stop and pause. We carry a paramount of emotions, whether negative, anxiety, distress, with different issues that are taking place. We don't expect everybody to be very excited about moving, but we have to kind of reconnect with our inner selves and know exactly what are our strengths, what makes us really good in what we're doing. If we're good at taking walks, let's do it. If we're good at just meditating, let's do that. If we're good at just reflections, doing that with another person, be it a friend, a spouse, or somebody, could be a mentor. And this is a very good opportunity actually to serve as mentors. and just advise those who need you and would definitely use your expertise. But a simple advice I usually start my day with is basically a 15-minute read of something positive. The news is filled with so many negativity. I mean, it's the reality. There is a lot going on, and we cannot deny that. We have to be mindful of the truth and realities, but we also need to make sure that we are in a very good standpoint where we are literally in a good position to contribute positively to our community. So material needs to be quite positive. We need to balance that. Watch the news, but make sure you also take care of your cognitive mind. We also, many people keep saying that we have all the time in the world. Could be a myth, it could be a truth, but we have to be mindful of other people as well, because we have many individuals in the front lines. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the doctors and nurses who are fasting and observing Ramadan, and at the same time committing to their duties as frontline survivors and also contributors. So alhamdulillah, we're very fortunate that we have people who are contributing to our communities, and we need to make sure that we are not the source of distraction. So if we're reaching out to family members and we're trying to go for a walk, maybe they're not ready for that yet. We should not be very forceful though. If we're trying to call someone, we do advise people to reach out to family members, talk to them, but we also have to be mindful that we have people are still doing their job. CAIR-Florida is constantly, they're still continuing their job from home. So I'm sure that if I take an hour away from Raniah's schedule, she's not going to be happy with that. But we have to be very mindful of the time we spend and the time we take from other people's life. And if it's meaningful, is it teaching us something? Are we coming out with something? What's the whole purpose behind calling someone? To chat, or we are discussing something meaningful that's going to lift us up? So alhamdulillah, there is a lot to do, but as Nathaly was saying, we have to be mindful also of our family dynamics, where we come from, what our resources are, what we have accessible, what not. And also we have different roles. I'm a mom, I have a 6-year-old at home. I'm sure I'm not going to be as productive as someone who has 3 children or someone who doesn't have kids. So it just depends. Our energy is different depending on our responsibilities.
Yeah, mashallah. No, you're very productive in different ways, right? You trust me, children make you very productive. But I really appreciate your point so much. And to I know my family is watching, I did not pay her to say that, but it is true. SubhanAllah, this actually happened to me the other day. So this is really critical, right? To understand that, like, what is your calm day might be someone else's stressful day, right? And what is their busy day might be your relaxation day. And I think that's very important. You know, the other day, it is hard to recognize, okay, someone's working, so they're not in the same mindset as you know what I mean? And that actually did happen to me the other day. And I was a bit frustrated because maybe someone is not, recognizing that for me, this is a busy time, but I do want to be able to, participate in other activities at the right moment. And then it also reminded me that the way that I respond, right? So if we have that frustration or people aren't necessarily being mindful of the differences that we have, that in that moment I was very frustrated, and I probably could have responded, more calmly and helped them to understand where I was coming from. But I think that's an excellent point. And you both kind of take us to the next section, which is the social interactions. But actually, before we get there, I want to just take a step back. I think I rushed the start of the program a little bit, and we didn't get to hear as much about your backgrounds, because you both, mashallah, bring very diverse and rich backgrounds to the CAIR-Florida team. So I want to take a moment to kind of let you guys do a little bit of an introduction and let us know what your background and experience is, and also your work with CAIR. And then we'll kind of start with the social interactions. And also, while we're hearing that, encouraging all of our attendees to include in the chat box, your feedback, your comments, what works for you and your family, what do you guys do in your daily routines, and then also, of course, the questions and answers are always welcome. So ladies, if you can give us a little bit more background on mashallah, your experience, inshallah.
So my name is Benchekeroun. and I'm sure Sherry is one of the CAIR staff members. She always appreciates the fact that we have to pronounce our names the proper way, which is Raja Benchekeroun. So thank you, Sherry, if you're listening. I am an Arabic language instructor, and I've been involved in teaching Arabic and English both as foreign languages for the past 15 years, but recently been involved in the Arab culture studies of identity, diversity within the Arab communities, and also what we contribute to our communities across the ocean.
MashaAllah. And you've also, MashaAllah, helped us professionalize all of our diversity and outreach trainings. You worked on trainings for school administrators, for police officers. So we're very grateful for your background and to be able to use your skill set, MashaAllah.
Thank you, Rania. Appreciate that.
Okay, good. So I am Nathaly Osorio, and well, my experience as a psychologist, I have been interested mainly in community and social psychology. So I have worked especially with a women's social movement in Colombia called Pacific Route of Women, or Ruta Pacífica de las Mujeres. And this is a movement that works with women that have been victims of war in Colombia. So it's a very lovely and passionate work, and I'm not working with them anymore. They work with the communities to empower them to take action with their local authorities, with the local administration, and also to find ways to strengthen their support networks and find ways of coping with the scars of war in communities and in the individual level. And well, also most recently, I have been approaching the individual mental health from a mindfulness perspective. Well, and besides that, I work with the legal department of CAIR-Florida as the project coordinator.
No, that's amazing. Thank you, Nathaly. And we're also really grateful to have you on board. And, that's very interesting, the psychology of interactions, right? The psychology of different groups. And all of this is also related to, when you think about like civil rights more broadly, it's related to how we treat one another, right? And how we connect with one another. So with that, I want to open it up also to our discussion on social interactions. So I know that you both kind of have started us off with speaking about how we interact with our families, because obviously in quarantine we are all isolated. Well, the majority of us are quarantined with our families whom we love, but also are the right people to know who to press our buttons, how to press our buttons, right? So just want to open it up to you guys for some more reflections on social interactions and what can we be keeping in mind to really make it a positive and fruitful month, inshallah.
Okay, so actually it was very interesting hearing Raja speak about this, because she was coming like from the perspective of, like be aware of the time of other people. And I think that's very interesting to hear from me, because I am a little bit of an introvert. So sometimes it's hard for me to reach out to people or to let them come to me. So, and I know that I'm not alone in this. Many of us sometimes do this. And actually at the beginning of the quarantine, I was like isolating myself, not only social distancing, but I was enjoying my solitude so much that I was kind of isolating myself. And then I realized like, okay, I have to, make a difference between these two things. One thing is social distancing, and one thing is isolating myself. So that's like where my point goes, the importance of social interaction, because all in all, your friends, your family, they are your support network. And it's important to have a strong support network, and it's not only for yourself, like when you're feeling a little bit down and you need someone to talk to, but also for them, you are also part of their support network. So it's very important to keep our social connections, our social relationships going during these days. And thankfully we have plenty of tools to make these social interactions happen. We are in an age of computers and telephones and internet, and it's so easy to talk to someone, even if they are overseas. And we can also make those phone calls or those video calls fun and interesting, and we can have some sort of online games, and we can do many things. Like the other day I was doing online karaoke with my friends and I would never thought of that before the quarantine. So, you know, it's like this kind of ideas. And also, like, don't think that your connections are only outside your home. And I know sometimes in some families, not of course not in every case, but sometimes it might be difficult, some social interactions at home. Like perhaps, you know, me and my brother, we don't get along too well and we are always fighting, and these things happen. But let's not let down, like, get in the way of us strengthening our social relationships with our family. So that's also like during this time, during Ramadan, it's very important to find very different and creative ways to be together. And okay, we cannot go, or you cannot go to the mosques, to the masjids during this time, but you can get together as a family and try to find very different strategies, board games, and, you know, besides, of course, the usual religious rituals and reading of the Quran and all the different activities, you can also do something a little extra and try to connect with your family and try to deepen these bonds between your family. So that's like my tip on social interactions. You know, it's important to be aware that we need those social interactions. It's part of all of our general well-being. So please don't isolate yourself, not from your family at home and not from the people outside.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And to your point as well, just being mindful, right? Like maybe there's a situation, but if you are mindful of what the situation that you're in, first of all, then you're able to kind of approach a way towards solving it or towards interacting with it, right? But first you have to kind of have that mindfulness and that awareness of, okay, like what is my current situation? And then how do I want to improve it? So what are the things that I should start doing, inshallah? So that's very helpful, alhamdulillah. And Rajat, did you have anything to add? I know you touched on our interactions.
I do agree with Nathaly, and both of you mentioned very important points. And one of the things I find quite interesting is that we're spending more time now with our family members. We're getting to know everybody more now. So alhamdulillah, but it's quite also an arena for us to kind of have more conflict than before. So one of the advice or one of the reminders I keep reminding myself every single day is to just stay away from confrontations, because as I was saying, everybody is carrying a different load of emotions, and they could be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be so many other different types of emotions, but we do kind of feel that our coping skills are currently at a low ebb. We're not in the same mindset actually, because we're doing, for example, working from home. I have to teach from home, and then I have to do all my duties from home. So basically there's not that time for me to interact with people on regular basis. So basically there is that those restrictions that we are placed in, but that does not prevent us from reminding ourselves that we have to stay away from heated discussions, not engage. Do not engage, even if things don't sound the way you want it to sound, but just stay away from it. Do not engage, and bring in more positivity. Where subhanAllah, we engage in certain conversations where we are placed in a situation that we, instead of giving each other feedback, we start criticizing because of all those emotions that we carry around. But we have to just do it the old way, agree to disagree, and stay away from heated discussions. And even if we feel like we are attempting many fruitless initiatives to restore our relationships, whether with siblings, whether with spouses, friends, colleagues, relationships vary depending on who you are surrounded with, but we have to be very mindful of our reactions, because they could exacerbate the situation. We need to respond take a break, go for a walk, 2-minute walk outside of your house, and basically just make sure you're not engaged in that conversation. It's very important for us also to make sure we are keeping our inner peace. It's Ramadan, and subhanallah, everybody is familiar with the 30-day challenge. We are constantly, as Muslims, experiencing the 30-day challenge every year. We have Ramadan. It's time for us to reflect on our actions, to connect, to stay away from any profanities, and also make sure that we are contributing positively to our communities. And just now, fasting Ramadan during COVID-19 is the greatest reminder of all. For many, many years, subhanallah, we've been placed in this prestigious Ramadan rituals where we have to gather around a very nice iftar table, enjoy the chat, and we have been taking that for granted. We've been taking a lot for granted, and we've been enjoying the fact that, oh, a masjid is open, we can go anytime. If I don't go to Tarawih today, I'll just join the group tomorrow, and I can just finish my khitam al-Quran just at home, and I can do all sorts of stuff. But we had options. Now we don't have those many options, and it's a greater strategy for us actually to learn that we need to cope with current situations, and we should not be taking things for granted. So subhanallah, we're reminded the 30-day challenge is on. So join us. You don't have to be a Muslim, but you have to continue your positivity. We're all in this together, as we all say now. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Reja. So you bring up some very great points that I want to just spend a minute on. So subhanAllah, they say like everything is a tool. It can be used for good and it can be used for not so good. So when we mention phone calls, that's a great way to not isolate yourself, Nathaly. It's a great way to reach out to people who might, need someone checking in on them. But you're expert on Arab culture, so I don't need to tell you that sometimes phone calls get us in trouble, right?
Exactly.
You get on the call with your friends and you're gossiping, or one conversation leads to another. And yes, this is something very real that, we all go through, right? So even if you're on the phone with your family or anything like that. And so we actually have a challenge in my house, and it is the speak less challenge. Because, even like subhanAllah, our family, it's very, we have an argumentative nature, right? We always want to debate one another. You start something on the kitchen table and it's like a one sentence and it leads to a 2-hour discussion. So our family goal is, to talk with purpose, right? Not to prevent ourselves from kind of mindless talk, which will lead to, like you said, fighting or bickering or unnecessary disagreements, or if you're on the phone too long and then you start gossiping and things like that. So I think that's very important, especially for those who come from a culture who we know that this is something that we might fall into, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so that was excellent. Thank you for that reminder. And then actually you touched on a question that I had for the both of you, which is, I was reminded that, of that patience is at the strike of calamity, right? And so obviously this has many, many meanings, but for me, it reminded me of the fact, like when I was telling you guys the other day, when it wasn't being understood that I was very busy that day and I was very frustrated. And I was like, in retrospect, I could have reacted differently. But my question was, what are the tips for how in the moment we can kind of, like you said, Rajat, pause, stop before we react. You gave a few tips as far as, take a break, take a walk, any other, tips that you guys would have as far as like, I don't know, maybe having a mantra or something that in the moment I can remember to implement, what the points that we're discussing now.
SubhanAllah, as a friend of mine said, this is how I am. Be it your friend, that's how things are. So we have to accept our family members the way they are. We have to accept the environment where they are from. We have to accept basically the package. And the way I feel things could be shifted a little bit differently is, let's not put our family members and friends in a situation where they have to justify why they weren't able to talk to us. Because once we start the justification, then we start meddling in certain topics that we should not even. So basically, we have, subhanallah, in Arabic, and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there is a hadith, he said, "Ista'dhir li akhaka al-muslim 70 udra." Before you say that my family member or my friend did not respond to my call, didn't do, think of 70 reasons why this person might not be able to answer your call. Maybe there's something wrong with that person. Don't take things personally. It's not about you, it's about the situation where they're at. So basically we have to start reassessing the way we look at our relationships, the way we approach our relationships. That's also a very good reminder for us to just pause. Am I taking my friend for granted? Am I taking my colleague for granted? Am I taking anybody in my life for granted? Just pause and think about or reassess our relationship and make sure that we accept our friends the way they are and our colleagues the way they are. And as we are going to be talking about how we are uniquely different. We don't have to match each other. We don't have to have the exact same character, but we have to contribute to each other's life in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And people feeling or undergoing anxiety, and I can give you this example of people who are suffering from anxiety. It feels like you are on the edge of a cliff, and then somebody shows up and asks you to describe the view. Basically, you're like, I am literally about to fall, and you are asking me to describe the view. So that's how things could actually be mirrored in our daily life. Like, I'm in the middle of something. I would love to respect my relationship with you, give it the attention it deserves, give it the respect it deserves, but we are both ready for that conversation.
Yeah, mashallah, that's so beautifully put, and such an apt metaphor. I think that is, you're feeling just very rushed in the moment, and then someone's coming to you, to describe the view, like you said. So thank you. That's wonderful. Nathaly, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I would like to say that, besides like the things or the reactions that we might have in the moment, this is also a training, an everyday training. Like, we cannot expect that if we are always like in these automatic thoughts about being angry, about being frustrated, about everything's going wrong, about why don't you understand me, then we cannot expect to react in a different way when someone is confronting us, even if they don't mean to do it. Sometimes people just are, showing us something or telling us something, and we take it personal. And then the reaction comes, and you get angry, you get frustrated, even sad sometimes. So it's also part of an everyday training, Well, from my perspective, mindfulness is very good for that, because you can observe your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations constantly. So that makes you aware that when something comes up, a negative or uncomfortable reaction, you can identify it more easily because you have already identified that in the past. So at least now you get it, or you identify it even before it comes up, perhaps. And then you can also start identifying what works for you. So yes, it can be the walk, the 2-minute walk. It can be just breathing in, breathing out. It can be just saying to the person, I'm sorry, let's talk about this in a few minutes. I need to cool down, So go, and if you need to scream at the wind, go do it. Just simply don't take it on somebody else, because it's not their fault, and also identifying where that comes from. Like, is this person really offending me? Is this person really being violent to me? Or am I just reacting from my past experiences? Am I taking like a victim's position? Am I perceiving this as an attack when it is not, and it is just their different opinion from mine? So that's also like distancing. That's what I would say, distancing from the situation and a little bit from our feelings, like observing that as a third person and trying to identify where does this come from, so I can know how to react to that.
Yeah, that's excellent. I have to tell you, ladies, I'm taking so many notes, and I kind of feel guilty, like I got my own session, my own counseling session with two experts, mashallah. But no, I think that is really true. So, you know, the two things that you said that stick to me are the mindfulness, right? That you really have to be mindful of the situation, not just from your perspective, but from the greater perspective. And subhanAllah, you know, Ramadan is the month of reflection. So what better time to be mindful and to, you know, use these reflections in your daily routine than during this month, inshallah. May Allah make it easy for us to do that. And the second thing was your habits, which I think is very, very true, right? Sometimes something becomes a reaction, becomes a reflex, that it's just the way that we react before even processing how we want to react. And I'm guilty of this, that I'm just used to reacting away. So that's what I do. And I think I've read before that, you know, there's a book or something like that, that is, it takes 14 days to kind of develop a habit and make a habit. So we have 25 or odd days left, right? So if we make the intention, inshallah, to develop these good habits and actually practice it in the next 2-3 weeks, then by the time, you know, the Ramadan is over, we'll inshallah come out as changed people. So thank you both for those beautiful reminders.
I would like just to add a little bit. You reminded me of something, and it's about habits. And once you become aware of an habit, it's no longer a habit, it's an election, it's a choice. So it's just like a simple way of looking at that, and it changes your perspective, because next way that you're getting angry just because, then you start thinking, okay, but I was already aware of this, so where am I standing?
Yes, that's very true, because it's a choice. Then you recognize your part in it, right? Like it's not just things happening to you, but you are an active participant in that. So I think that's great. Excellent, mashallah. Okay, so we're gonna go into the third and most exciting, I think, part of the presentation, which is all about our emotions and our thoughts, which is, you know, that's sometimes one of our greatest needs during this month, is, you know, how can we, you know, center ourselves on our emotions and our thoughts in a really positive way. And you guys both have some excellent feedback on that area. So I'm going to open it up to you guys, inshallah, for our emotions, our thoughts, and our reflections for mental health and well-being during this month.
Okay, so I would like to say about two main things. One is something that usually my masters call it watering the seeds of joy, your seeds of joy and love. So it's like a beautiful analogy for me, and we all have in our consciousness like different seeds, you know, the seed of anger, the seed of sadness, the seed of anxiety, of joy, of love, like all those different seeds. So we want to water and to nurture those seeds that may be good for us, that may be beneficial for us, and they will start taking up the space for all those, or from all these other seeds that we don't like that much, like the anger and the frustration and the sadness. So it's not a matter of eliminating sadness or, well, all the uncomfortable emotions, because we cannot do that, and that's never the goal, but we can make our seeds of joy and love stronger. So how do we do that? Well, it's different for everyone, and I think that's one of the main you know, like conclusions of all that we're saying, is that whatever advice you're receiving, please try to filter that through yourself, through your experiences, through your skills, and through yourself, you know, because everything is according to yourself. You know, what works for you may not be the same thing that works for other person. So it comes in different forms, but I would say that there are about three main ways. And so one is creating, every form of creation, and it's not only about art. It's not only about, you know, painting or sculpting or arts, like in the common sense that we have about that concept, but it's creating in very different ways. So cooking is also creating, when you try to make a recipe something a little bit different. When you are creating a project in your work, in your everyday life, that's creation. When you are playing is a beautiful way of creation. And with your kids, if you have children, they are our masters of creativity, and we can play with them, and let them teach us how to be more creative. So creating everything that you can use to express yourself and what's inside of you, that's always a good way to water your seeds of joy. Also, giving to someone else, volunteering, helping other people in very different ways. It can be through words, counseling, or doing some like more tangible actions for someone else. And also the connection with God and with your source of spirituality. So those are like three main things that are very useful to water those seeds of joy and happiness and love. And the thing with uncomfortable emotions is, as I said, you cannot remove them, and that's not the goal, because those emotions are also very useful for us. Anger is useful because usually we feel anger when injustice is happening. So if we don't feel anger, we are just going to let everyone, step on us. So anger is good, it's useful, but we have to know we have to know how to use it. And so the thing is, acknowledge those uncomfortable emotions. As I said, try to understand where they come from, and accept them, and accept that you can feel angry, frustrated, sad, and at the same time you can feel joy, happiness. We have all that space inside ourselves for all different emotions. So it's okay to feel bad, because that's always like another thing that we always see, like this kind of obligation to be happy and to be always in a good mood. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to have, those little blue days, and you can accept that, but also accept that there are other emotions. So it's not the only thing. So it's also like a matter of perspective, realizing that you have all these different, all of the rainbow of emotions, if you want to call it like that.
Mashallah, you're raining gems on us today. It's so many great points, mashallah. I mean, I love everything you said, especially, someone reminded me that you can't fill a full cup. Mm-hmm. So if your cup is already full and then you're trying to, put good things in, but there's no space for it. There's no room for it, right? So we have to take away that which doesn't serve us, and then you work on planting those seeds, like you said. If your garden is full, there's no room for the seeds to grow. So kind of take out the weeds first, and then plant the seeds, inshallah. And that's, that's our intention. And then, your analogy about seeds and plants growing, I really love that, because if you're like me, you're a very impatient person. You want things, immediately done. And it takes time, right? So as you're implementing this advice, as you're working to change yourself, give yourself a chance, right? Give yourself a chance to kind of see the results, and not expect that, I tried it twice, in a row, and it didn't work. So I think that's a great analogy, that these things take time. And creation, the perspective change, that was really powerful for me. I don't think of myself as like a creative person, and really what I mean is, I don't think of myself as an artistic person, and I do confuse the two sometimes. But to think of your work as you're creating something, when we create something, we feel proud, we feel happy, we accomplished something. So even for me, thinking like, oh wait, when I'm working on a project, I'm creating that project, I'm helping bring it to life and make it happen. That's a very empowering perspective. So thank you. I think that's definitely something that I'm actually going to start using immediately. So we've created the online series, and we're already on our way, inshallah. And then the last thing was, you mentioned filtering the advice through yourself, right? So you know yourself, so you know when you have to adjust things. And so with that, I actually want to go to Sister Rajat, because I know that you can continue this conversation about how we're each unique. So what we're hearing, maybe some of it works for us, maybe some of it doesn't work for us. How can we understand that a little better?
Beautiful. Thank you, Nathaly and Rania. This is really nice. I'm going to start planting the seeds of joy and enjoy them, inshallah, with everyone in my family. But I just wanted to, in line with what Nathaly was mentioning, that there's so many things that we could actually approach to restore joy back in ourselves. And the one thing I found has something quite gratifying about it is volunteering. When you serve others, when you serve the community, when you do something for people that need you the most without waiting for anything in return. Volunteering has an amazing impact on your health. We're currently isolated, quarantined, but you could volunteer in some sort of virtual project. CAIR-Florida would definitely enjoy having more volunteers. I'm enjoying my
never turn them away.
It's a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful sisters and brothers, mashallah. And I miss going to the Tampa office every Tuesday and Thursday and greet all the members there. And they are working tirelessly. Literally, I saw it with my own naked eyes. Mashallah, they're working hard every single day to make sure that they serve the community. And more volunteers in any sort of organization that would bond us together. And I'm going to just bring everybody's attention back to how we are so diverse. We have doctors in the front lines. We have professionals working from their homes. But this is the first time since I set foot in the United States, well, let's say 9 years ago, to never, I hear no reference to our ethnicity. Everybody is calling this pandemic by one name, regardless of our identities, regardless of our background, regardless of our wealth, where we come from, our social status. We're all impacted in some sort by this COVID-19, and it's having a toll on us, yani, subhanallah. We are really suffering in some sort, and we should also remind ourselves that there are people who don't see a big of a difference in what's happening right now because they have been confined for many years. CAIR-Florida works with prisons, and it serves people who really need to be connected with their communities, who need to reflect on their actions and need to just feel valued and recognized. and being from a different culture or background, one of the biggest mistakes you kind of commit when you approach somebody is to neglect their background and where they're coming from, because that's just literally sets the floor, or it sets a bad note. Recognizing each other, recognizing our language, recognizing the effort we contribute, every single thing that comes with us has to be recognized. And subhanallah, by volunteering, you'll learn about yourself, you learn about people, you learn about the communities and how they're connected. So go ahead, please, and join us. We'd love to have you aboard. And subhanallah, when we are moving about how Rania was asking me about how we learn and how we match. Currently, there are a lot of learning management systems that are offering free courses. And I see everybody very excited, everybody's very excited about taking free courses. Everybody's very excited about joining webinars, trainings, and all sorts of input where we can actually elevate our professional life and personal lives. But we have to recognize ourselves before we embark on this journey. From an educational perspective, from a psychological perspective, we don't respond to learning the same way. Mm-hmm. We have to recognize our cognitive needs. That's number one. Feed our cognitive with positive input, learn positive things, read positive articles, but it has to match your learning style. If you are visual, look for webinars. Enjoy some visual aids, some presentations. If you enjoy listening, look for podcasts. If you enjoy any sort, you have to learn about where you come from and what your learning style. So there are 4 basic learning styles. There is the visual learner, the auditory learner, and there is the kinesthetic learner, the person who likes to move. And then there is the logical learner, the person who likes to read and solve puzzles. So when you know where you come from, you pick the right resources and the right material to match your learning style. And that is an attempt to avoid what we call anxiety or learning anxiety. SubhanAllah, we seek knowledge for the fact of that we need to feel satisfied with ourselves and what we learn, and we feel that growth. If it does not take place, complete devastation and frustration happens, and then we feel like we are dwelling in negative emotions, and we think that we are not up to what we are learning, or maybe we start doubting ourselves and doubting our intellectuality. But we have to learn about ourselves first, establish founding knowledge before we place ourselves in uncomfortable situations. A lot of people now, I hear that everybody is asking everyone to go to uncomfortable places and learn, leave your comfort zone. It's a fact. You only learn when you leave your comfort zone, but don't leave there when you're not well prepared. When you don't have a foundation, you're not intellectually courageous and humble to accept other people's perspective. You need to confront other people's perspectives. Go listen. Don't see things from your own lens. Listen to other people. We're not all right. Subhanallah. We have to step out of our comfort zone when we are ready. And we have to have that intellectual courage to leave. But subhanAllah, learn about yourself before you embark on any learning experience.
MashaAllah, it's amazing. I'm about to go to USF and see any courses that the public can sign up for, inshallah. This is great. It ties back to what we were speaking about mindfulness, right? Like if you're mindful, if you're aware of yourself and also other people. And I love what you said about understanding people's background and people's identities. It's a whole nother conversation. But when people say I don't see color, I don't see race and all this thing, it's like that's a very important part of who people are, right? Like our identity and our background and where we're coming from, it influences how we live our life. So that's an important thing to be mindful of, to be aware of, as we're talking about, being empathetic with people, whether it's your family or whether it's anyone that you're interacting with. So I think that's a really excellent point. And also what you said about the learning styles and tying it back to how we can be more patient with our family. Sometimes again, when we do something one way, we want everyone to do it the same way. Exactly. So maybe that I am a visual person and I like to watch my webinars, and maybe your child or your sibling that doesn't work for them, and so maybe they want to be reading a book, or maybe they have to be writing, and you're saying why aren't you doing it, why aren't you doing this? And it's because that's not the right fit for them. So I think that's a very important part, especially as we're we feel a responsibility for our loved ones, right? So as we're trying to guide them, or we're trying to see how they're doing as well, to keep that in mind and to be empathetic that way. And I had read a book recently. I think it was called How to Focus. It was a very small book. I got it from FedEx or something. But it was sharing techniques to actually change your state of mind. So let's say I'm in a state of mind where I'm very calm and I'm doing low energy work, but I need to be high energy. Then there's actually certain things, like you had alluded to it, Nathaly, about your breathing, your counting, that you can actually raise your energy level. And then there's other things. Let's say I'm very hyperactive and I need to be able to use that logic. I need to be able to process things, and I want to kind of take my energy level down to be able to do that. And so it kind of walks you through some strategies and tips. And so I think that's very important, what you both brought up, and how we can there's different times call for different measures, right? So we have to have different perspective, and that could be day to day, that could be hour to hour. So alhamdulillah, this has been incredibly insightful for me. I want to hear some closing thoughts from both of you. And actually, as we do that, we're going to try to do a closing poll, just because we want to interact with everyone as well. We want to hear how it's going for you guys. Hopefully you found it useful. We're going to go ahead and launch a poll for the folks joining on Zoom, and they'll be able to vote to let us know, what is your favorite pre-iftar activity? How is Ramadan going so far? And how do you spend your Ramadan nights? What's your favorite way to spend your Ramadan nights? So go ahead and take the poll so we can learn what the public is doing, inshallah. And then with that, Nathaly and Rajat, any closing remarks for us, or any final points as far as, I did have some questions for you guys, but we probably won't have time because there was so much great things being shared. But maybe, your as your closing remarks, your favorite aspect of Ramadan, or the number one mental well-being tip that you want people to take away from this call, something like that.
Okay. Okay, good. So I would say, I think Ramadan is such a huge advantage for you. And it goes with the line that Reja was saying about the 30-day challenge. So, take advantage of this time. And this is a time for going back to yourself, for connecting with God. So, use that time, use these days to really connect with that, with yourself and with God. So when you're connecting with yourself, I think like the main conclusion, as I was saying, of this webinar is identify or get to know yourself, in the different aspects of our life. So we know that our mental well-being is not an isle, and it has, it's not an island, and it has a connection with our general and physical well-being, with our social interactions. So take a look at all those areas of your life and how you, or what are your needs in those areas. So maintain your priorities in focus and use this time to get to know yourself better, to improve, to remove the cluster or all the things that you don't like that much, that are not very useful for you, all these automatic reactions, all these kind of habits, and connect with God, because ultimately during these times, I think that's a great strength for everyone, just connecting with their spirituality.
Thank you, Nathaly. That's a beautiful reminder. Sister Rajat.
Thank you so much, Nathaly, and thank you, Sister Raniah, for your wonderful webinars every Wednesday. MashaAllah, they're really, truly insightful. The takeaway that it's a reminder for myself before I go ahead and advise anybody. SubhanAllah, we have to remind ourselves of things that we have to show gratitude in these difficult times. We say thank you as much as possible, ask with kindness, be kind to one another, and basically just make sure that we are also contributing to the well-being of other people. We come from a very diverse background, and coming from a collectivist society, we function as a group, and we're missing out on this right now. We don't have those large groups. We have this, the whole village raises the child, right? If I said it right, it takes a village to raise a child. No, it takes a village to raise a child. So let's serve as mentors. If there is anybody in our smaller circle that needs our advice, let's help them. And then we just move one circle at a time, a little bit wider and wider, to help people that need us. Knowledge that is not shared would not be beneficial. So make sure that you're sharing the wealth. You learn something, pass it down to somebody else. You don't know, it's a sadaqah. Basically, knowledge is sadaqah. Make sure you are helping someone. And when you reach certain level of expertise, you can detect who needs what and take the initiative. In our culture, we have that. We do take the initiative, and subhanAllah, in the Western culture, it's quite different. You have to ask for help if you need it. But please try this out. It's really nice. Make sure that you initiate the help. Go ahead and ask people if they need your help. Advise them. Maybe it's gonna come in handy. And it's a sadaqah, mashallah. It's really wonderful. So
no, that's a beautiful reminder. Is the strength of the CAIR-Florida team is indeed the diversity of the team. So we come from different races, different religions, different native origins, everything, and that's why I think CAIR has definitely been one of the best teams that I've worked with, and it comes from our diversity and always leading with kindness, as you have said, Sister Rajat. So I want to thank you both so much for sharing your time with us today. And just a update on the attendees. Alhamdulillah, most people are having an excellent Ramadan. Some people are still working on it, which is perfectly fine as well. And pre-iftar, we have a pretty even breakdown between reflecting is very popular, sitting down with family, as well as, of course, cooking and reading, as well as their nights. The best way to spend the nights for a lot of folks is with family, but also praying, reading, and resting, reflecting for the next day. So thank you both. Again, Wednesdays at 12 p.m., Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern. This Sunday, we have a youth trivia bowl, which is going to be a lot of fun. There's prizes included. And on Friday, this Friday, don't miss our telethon with Sheikh Sohaib Webb starting at 1:30. You can join via Facebook Live, and also please support us so that we can continue being there for the community and providing much needed services and resources. So thank you all, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you.
Thank you.